Advanced Residential Applications and Case Studies. Chapter 7, The Sales Comparison Approach. Page 19, Market Survey Technique. In several of the examples from the preceding pages, comparable sales were available, but they just weren't recent enough or located in the subject's neighborhood. What about those times which even old or distant information is not available? In other words, what do you do when there are no, that's highlighted, comps, no comps? For example, how much of an adjustment would you make for an indoor pool that cost $250,000 to construct, but there are no paired sales to extract and support such an adjustment? In this case, the market survey technique can be employed. When limited data is available, you interview market participants who have personal knowledge and experience in the market in question. This includes other appraisers, real estate brokers, buyers and potential buyers, and sellers of similar properties. When used properly, this technique can be a reliable basis for determining adjustments and other market factors. There are many complex property appraisal situations where a form of this technique can be applied. It is often valuable to discuss adjustments and other factors with brokers and other appraisers as a means of increasing the confidence level of adjustments made and the final value conclusion for the subject property. Appraisers doing work involving litigation might use a more formal survey with some statistical analysis to assist in supporting their value conclusions. Sometimes called contingent valuation method, CVM. The market survey method is non-scientific and somewhat controversial throughout appraiser circles. It has, however, been accepted in many courts throughout the United States as a recognized appraisal methodology. As with other non-traditional techniques, the appraiser must provide a full explanation for the reasons for using the technique, as well as the logic behind the conclusions reached. Is it perfect? No. Is it better than doing nothing? Yes. End of page. Page 20, Sales Comparison Approach. Another useful tool may be componentizing value. That is, estimating the value of the individual components. For instance, land and improvements that make up the whole property. With this tool, the land value is estimated the same way it would be in the cost approach. Unlike the cost approach, the cost new and depreciation are not determined. Instead, the contributory value of the improvements is estimated for each comparable by deducting the estimated land value from the sales price. This amount is then converted to a unit of comparison. Sale price per square foot is used most frequently. That amount is then applied to the subject's gross living area. For instance, if price per square foot of gross living area is the unit of measure, to calculate the contributory value of the subject's improvements, adding the land value to the contributory improvement will result in an estimate of total value for the subject. This technique will not work in cases where determining the land value of the subject and/or the land value of comparables is difficult or impossible due to the absence of land sales. However, many appraisers often wrongly assume no land sales are available in a built-up area. Often, good land sales can be found. It just takes a little digging. With a particularly challenging appraisal assignment, it is usually worth the effort to determine if sufficient land sales are available to estimate the subject site value. Even an approximate value of the land component of the subject and comparables can assist the appraiser in solving the valuation problem. End of page. Page 21. Components of value. Componentizing value means valuing individual parts of a property and adding the component values together. This assumes the whole is equal to the sum of the parts, more or less. After all, isn't the cost approach a simple summation of the land and improvement values? This is a good method if the extraction technique is applied consistently, and if the estimated land values are reasonable and make sense in relationship with each other. But didn't we look at Standards Rule 1-4E a little earlier? Didn't it basically say the sum of the parts doesn't equal the whole? A common myth in appraising is that adding together components of value is a violation of appraisal standards. There are certain situations that are specifically prohibited, such as adding land value to the purchase price of a manufactured home and using this as a comparable sale. However, componentizing value is a legitimate tool and a valuable one when applied properly. Clearly, the final conclusion must pass the test of reasonableness. Does the opinion of value reached using this method makes sense in the market? Is it simply another tool that can help the appraiser solve the problem at hand? Oh, and by the way, Standards Rule 1-4E does not prohibit adding components together. It cautions us against doing that on a rotate basis when properties or interests are being combined. Here are some situations where componentizing is useful. Number one, the property has special improvements that require the assistance of an expert with special knowledge. An example of this is a property with both a residence and a horse boarding and training facility. In addition to the residence, the property has barns, corrals, a covered arena, a detached office, and a caretaker's cottage. In this case, one component of value would be the business value of the boarding and training facility. With a large operation, this could require a business appraiser to make a determination of value. Number two, the property is agricultural and has several tracts of land with different uses. An example would be a farm, which consists of grazing land, land planted with crops, and a section used for residential purposes. Each component would most likely need to be valued separately. Number three, the property is a home with a unique design. The third example above is probably the most common type of complex property encountered by a residential appraiser. These homes are often larger than typical, as well as having a unique design and/or building materials. Round homes, log homes, earth-sheltered homes, and solar-heated and powered homes are typical examples. Because such properties are unique and are often constructed as the owner's dream house, the cost of construction is often significantly higher than the value reflected in the market. In estimating a value for this type of property, the following items should be considered. Reproduction cost often exceeds replacement cost, which means there is functional obsolescence. With a unique home, cost rarely equals value. It may be impossible to find sales of something with the same design. After all, it is unique. Example, geodesic dome. However, sales of homes with other unique designs can be used. Buyer motivation is often the desire to own a unique home. not necessarily a geodesic dome. Understanding typical buyer motivation may be important in solving the appraisal problem. Traditional adjustment factors such as room count, number of baths, and living area may have less impact with a unique home. Many of these adjustments may not be appropriate for a unique home. There is often a considerable difference in the living area with homes of a unique design. Using traditional size adjustments may not be appropriate. Componentizing value allows the contributory value of the improvements to be analyzed on a price per square foot basis, which can permit large size differences to be considered. Differences in location can also be considered using the components of value technique. Estimating land value for the subject and comparables will account for most locational factors. The locational influences should be reflected in the land value. End of page.